Raptors have won 4 in a row for the first time since February of 2023. They've won 6 of their last 7. What is going on? Let's go to the film room. The Raptors' defense has been the catalyst over these last 7 games. They have the second best defense in the league, allowing just over 105 points per 100 possessions. And it's a recipe they've been trying to establish all year. Great on-ball defense bleeding into good help defense, which creates an overall good defensive infrastructure. Sounds simple, but it was something the Raptors were just not executing without the help of Davion Mitchell. A typical Davion Mitchell defensive possession looks like this: stopping and stonewalling drives, not allowing free lanes to the basket, and eating up a lot of shot clock, because I think opposing teams feel like they can try to get past him, and so they waste about 5-10 seconds trying to get around Davion, and it ends up in eating a bunch of clock for the offense. He's just feisty. He's fighting around screens. He's trying to get under him. This time he gets an offensive foul call on Zion Williamson. This time he's always fighting around screens. This time a rear side contest on DeJounte Murray. And so that aspect established, point of attack basketball. Cool. Now, with that hyper level of aggression, the Raptors, with their length and activity on the help side, Scottie Barnes, Jakob, they can clean things up, which is exactly what they've been doing. This isn't Davion, but watch RJ fight over this screen, and then great help defense and the contest by Scottie on this CJ McCollum layup. Here, again, Scottie using his activity off of the ball to get this steal. Raptors are out and running. 15 seconds on the clock. Davion forces a tough post-entry pass here to Zion Williamson. Zion attacks, help comes, and then the weak side steal. And so that right there is the recipe for the Raptors on defense. Davion here chasing CJ McCollum for the contest. Here, Grady gets beat off the dribble, but Jakob is there to clean up with the block. Great on-ball defense by Bruce Brown, who does his best Davion impression here, forcing DeJounte Murray to pick up the ball, and a kick out to Daniel Tice for the 3. You live with that all the time. And I think the whole team has bought into this style defensively, and it's bled into good defensive possessions all throughout. So here, Ochai Agbaji chases CJ McCollum around, walls him off, and then DeJounte Murray attacks the closeout. Bruce Brown steps up. They help. Good defensive stop. So it's just this constant state of aggression on ball, and it leads to good backline help from Jakob and Scottie. And that is why you're seeing Scottie and Jakob have these crazy block and steal totals. I believe Jakob had 3 blocks tonight. Scottie had 3 steals tonight and a block. And so these guys are doing the dirty work on the back end for the Raptors. Why it's working overall right now is because they have more trustworthy on-ball defenders. And the answer to that equation is Davion Mitchell. So I understand that Davion comes with his warts offensively, a little bit turnover prone, still working to be a more well-rounded scorer, an offensive player and shooter. I think that's obviously what everybody talks about with Davion Mitchell. Sure, it's a huge part of what his future will be in the NBA. That being said, for this particular version of the Toronto Raptors, he is essential for them trying to achieve what they want on the defensive end. They've had the second best defense in the league over the last 7 games. Yes, a lot of that has to do with Scottie, his engagement, off ball, the activity, being in passing lanes, being the weak side help, all that type of stuff is applicable. Same thing with Jakob, being that backline presence, that safety net for the Raptors defense. If there are lapses on ball, because there are, RJ is making mistakes out there. Grady's making mistakes out there. The ultra aggressive style doesn't suit everybody on the team, but it does suit Davion Mitchell. It does suit Bruce Brown. It does suit Ochai Agbaji. And both of those guys played well tonight. I think Scottie Barnes is really buying into on-ball too. He had some great possessions against Zion Williamson in this fourth quarter where he's picking him up full court, pressuring him, making sure that he eats up a lot of clock too. And so by the time, the Pels get to half court, it's like 14 seconds left, and they're basically trying to scramble to get something going offensively. That is the Raptors' MO. And I'm curious to see what happens when Emmanuel Quickly comes back because Emmanuel Quickly isn't the caliber of defender Davion Mitchell is. You'd be hard pressed to find, I'd say, a lot of guard defenders that are near the, there's the Drew Holidays and Derek Whites of the world and all that type of stuff. But Davion Mitchell is a defensive specialist. And so he is winning his minutes on that end. I believe he was a plus 19 tonight. So again, winning his minutes in a massive way. And he's been the secret sauce of this Raptors defense. I've talked over the last couple of games about what Scottie has done defensively, how great he's been. I think he's playing at an all defense level, and there's no question about that. But it's also about putting your players in positions to succeed. And if you're asking Scottie to be the on-ball stopper, the on-ball guy who's guarding the best player, yada, 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 that's not necessarily his way to succeed. I talked about like how the Bucks scheme for Giannis defensively as that weak side help, using that length to block shots, how they use Brook Lopez, sort of like how you would envision Jakob Poeltl being used as the guy in the middle, the giant really that is going to try to stop everything at the basket. You can afford to be a little bit more aggressive at the point of attack when you have those players. That being said, they play this conservative style where they're funneling guys to the basket. And so I think they can achieve that better with good on-ball defenders, and Davion is the one that does that. So I'm very curious to see how the Raptors are able to kind of move forward here, because I think the starting group with Davion in it, and I want to talk about their chemistry on offense too. One, with Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl first. Scottie does an excellent job of hunting out mismatches in transition, and it's a double every single time. Here he does, beautiful pass to Jakob Poeltl for the finish. This time, in pick and roll, off motion, just lob to Jakob for the finish. And then once again, Raptors get the mismatch for Scottie in the post, sends the double automatically, boom, easy dump off to Jakob for the finish. And so you're seeing how these two can play off of each other long term. I know there's been tons of conversation about how Scottie and Jakob can fit long term. I am of the believer that they actually can play together. And you can see it in things like this, because Jakob is such a great mover off the ball. Jakob is such a smart passer and is great intuitively when it comes to getting in the middle there, especially in those push shot areas. It actually opens up the floor for Scottie. It's a different version of spacing for him. Yes, he's not the guy who's stretching the floor. Yes, he's not the guy who's a vertical lob threat. But in that middle area of the floor, it's actually another version of spacing. It's kind of what Isaiah Hartenstein does and how he's able to space the floor, because in that middle area, he puts pressure on the defense. Then the defense has to collapse in. It creates open opportunities for everybody else. So I think Scottie and Jakob can work long term. I think we're seeing it now. Admittedly, this was a good matchup for them because Yves Missi is still trying to figure out what he needs to do on the defensive end. But yeah, I think there is a world in which those guys can work together long term. And we're also seeing how RJ Barrett and Jakob are working together long term. Jakob had 5 assists tonight. 4 of them were to RJ, and it was off of those off-ball movements and cuts. Here, nice give and go between RJ and Jakob, just bounce pass, beautiful finish. And then, pick and roll with RJ and Jakob. He dumps it off to Jakob, they collapse in, and then a nice little lob up top to RJ. This time in that short roll area, like I said, defense collapses in. He just throws the alley-oop to RJ. And then another off-ball cut here. Raptors run a flex action. Then RJ just goes backdoor for the finish. And so you're seeing, I actually think this is the RJ that we saw last season with the Raptors, where he was really focused in on being a great cutter off of the ball. As this team gets more healthy, you see that version of RJ more often, where he's working on his movement off ball, where he's working off of the cutting actions, the flex actions that the Raptors like to run. And that is the great version of the Toronto Raptors. We've been seeing that over the last 7 games. They've been playing awesome basketball. And I know people are probably wondering, like, damn, what does this have to do with the tank? Honestly, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. The next 2 weeks until the deadline, actually less than 2 weeks, it's about 10 days until the deadline, will be very interesting to see how the Raptors move through this thing. But right now, they're winning games. They're competing defensively. I think this type of stuff is also important for the development of this team, to know that there is an identity out there to develop, that to also know that, like, by working and buying into what the Raptors and Darko Rajakovic is trying to do, you can win games. They're doing it with the system that Darko is trying to implement. The ball movement, the .5 basketball, if you will. The defense is actually very similar to what the Raptors wanted to implement to start the year. Now they're seeing, the fruits of their labor, if you will, on the defensive end. And so things are working out for them right now. You need some good moments in the season, even if it is a down season for the Toronto Raptors, even if it is a rebuild / tanking season for the Toronto Raptors. You need to get those small wins. And right now, this 6 of 7 stretch is that small win category. They play the Wizards next. They probably beat the Wizards, and it'll be a 7 of their last 8 games they've won. Is that going to be the be-all and end-all of the season? I don't necessarily think so. You are free to think so. You are free to think that this is ruining the tank. This is ruining the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. I ultimately think just see where the cards kind of stack and go from there. Right now, they're getting tons of contributions from their bench in Chris Boucher, who was great tonight, and Bruce Brown, who was great tonight. Kelly Olynyk didn't play again, but ultimately has been playing really well for them over this stretch as well. So, they're getting stuff from guys that they likely are going to trade. And so what part of the equation does that play moving forward? We'll see in the next 10 days as they kind of maneuver this trade deadline. That being said, Raptors are winning. Good vibes. Good stuff. Scottie is back to being an all-star. And I think, by the way, that is more important than almost anything right now. To know that the guy that you have paid max money, that you have called the franchise, is playing like the guy that you signed. All-star level guy, all defense level guy, translating and playing basketball that turns into winning. That is more important than almost anything else. In a lot of ways, you can see him being active and doing a little bit of everything. And I think Raptors fans can really appreciate that because we watched a guy do that for 10 years in Kyle Lowry. So appreciate the fact that Scottie is figuring it out, that he's kind of experimenting and developing certain areas of his game, and that he looks like the guy that the Raptors can build around moving forward. That is a win in itself. Folks, as always, subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tapping into these recaps all season. We're now in the good vibes era. The Raptors are winning, and I appreciate you guys tapping in because, hey, the lows are the lows. Enjoy the highs as well. Appreciate y'all. See you guys later. Bye.